I'm grateful, and this is a powerful statement that I learned from the Unmute Yourself podcast from the wonderful host, Nancy. And what I want to talk to you about today is what there is to be grateful for when it comes to our podcast, when we don't see the numbers growing, whether that's downloads, whether that's the money in our bank account, or we're not sure why people aren't leaving reviews or reaching out and telling us how amazing our shows are. How can you be grateful for and want more without burning yourself out? And for Thanksgiving, I thought this was a great topic. And of course, I will link that magical episode at the Unmute Yourself podcast in the show notes. But let's talk about I'm grateful and for our podcasts. Welcome to the Cure for Pod Fade. I am so excited you found your way here because that means you know how powerful podcasting can be. You are ready to build a legacy with your unique story, your message, and your offer, but you're getting a little overwhelmed. You're feeling frustrated, you're feeling stuck. You just don't know how to grow your show, find a new audience, and make some money. Podcasting can be the ticket to the life of your dreams, and it doesn't have to be as hard as you think. We're talking about all the ingredients it takes to be a successful, profitable podcaster without that icky overwhelm, because you are too magical to join the 85% plus club that pod fades away. I'm your host, Jen Dragonette, so let's make podcasting easy peasy lemon squeezy. When you hear that podcast episode that makes you go, holy crap, I needed to hear that today. Guess what? That's probably your show more often than you think. And I know it's hard to be in this podcast world because we are so used to seeing all the fantasy marketing over on social media where people are getting thousands of likes and comments, and you're over here like, I've got 30 downloads on my podcast and is it even worth it? The thing is there are so many other things to be grateful for with your podcast. You can look at it in so many different ways. And today, that is what we're talking about. I'm grateful for the downloads I have. And I'm grateful for what podcasting has actually done for my life. If you think of it outside of business, what has podcasting done for you? Has there been that moment of impact where somebody has reached out that said, oh my goodness, because of your show, this happened? When I was talking to Dave Jackson, I think it was episode 80, we were talking about that. And he had a person who reached out that says, I was listening to your show and I was thinking of ending my life on Halloween, but something you said made me change my mind. And that really got me thinking of my own story. And my story is, wonderful 2020. So before we actually got locked into our houses, I decided to become a podcaster. And I wanted to become a podcaster because I was so sick of building my coaching business and never having anyone to talk to. Reaching out to person, you want to have a coffee chat? Want to have a coffee chat? Want to have a coffee chat? Most people don't want to have a coffee chat with you. And I was getting lonely. My person that I live with, we're going to call him that right now, but we didn't see each other very much. He was a firefighter or is a firefighter and maybe home 4 to 6 days a month. So I was very isolated. So podcasting for me was an outlet to talk to people because although people didn't want to talk to me as a coffee chat, I could always get someone on for an interview. And that changed my life. That changed the trajectory. That's a hard word for me. Trajectory of where my business went. Because I chose to go into podcasting, I went from health coach to nutrition coach to chronic pain coach to health at every size coach to, you guessed it, a podcast coach. But what I found is I'm not necessarily just a podcast coach. I am more of a let's find your story. Let's think of the big picture because I can give you strategies, but if you don't have that big picture, it's never going to work. And that's where my heart is lying, is I'm grateful for this journey because I've realized that I don't want to teach just strategy anymore. I want to teach you to use your stories to be a life raft for someone. But let me get back to this piece of why podcasting has changed my life. And yes, it's grown my business. It's allowed me to start a beautiful production business, have amazing clients. But what it gave me was an outlet to ask people to have a conversation. Because here's the thing. On most of the podcast interviews, we interviewed and we made a connection and we networked and we still have conversations. And that is not something that I would have had if I didn't leave social media and just kept going there. People were not interested, again, in doing coffee chats, in doing dual lives. But when you invite someone on a podcast that you want to talk to, the majority of the time, they say yes if you do it right. So for me, having these conversations led me to meeting Lakshmi Day, which was episode 7 of my other podcast, which has now paused for a moment, which is Feed Your Business with Love. And we had this deep conversation and ended up having this really deep connection. So what happened is, as I was slipping into this darker place in my life, which I am grateful for because from the ashes we must rise, she kept being in my corner, cheering me on, helping me through this. So when she had a retreat in Costa Rica, I said yes. I said, yes, I want to be wild and free. That was the name of the retreat. And here I am in a pandemic, borderline agoraphobe, which I think that's the right word for being afraid of germs. Never traveled outside the country by myself. Hadn't done much traveling by myself actually at all. I bought a plane ticket to a foreign country during a pandemic and had the most magical time learning what it really felt like to be wild and free. That would not have happened without this podcast. And that's just one of the many stories. I've had people reach out to me that have changed their businesses and changed their lives. I've had countless CPR audits where people come back and were like, I was going to give up on my show. I kept going and this magical thing happened. So I want to go back to the statement that Nancy said on the Unmute Yourself podcast is, I'm grateful for and. I'm grateful for all of these experiences and I want more. For 2024, I want to have more conversations with people on this show. I want to bring in experts that do the strategy so that I can talk to you about being that life raft and for other people. If you haven't heard of that, that's the name of my book, Your Story is Someone's Life Raft. And what it is it's basically your story, your journey is someone else's beacon of hope, someone else's life raft. So they're sitting there underwater and it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's a product or service. Your product or service allows them to keep their head above water, maybe get into a lifeboat so that they can, again, move to their next level. And what my focus going forward is going to be is looking at that big picture. Yes, if you work with me and come into my coaching programs, of course, I'm going to teach you the strategy because we have to have a strategy, right? We have to know the tech. We have to have the marketing plan. We have to have the strategy behind making profits and building a beautiful podcast that makes an impact and profits. Remember, more profits, bigger impact. So you get all of that with me, but I want to be forward thinking in, let's find those stories that connect with your audience. Those stories that make you feel a little uncomfortable to share, but you know sharing them will make an impact on someone's life. Sharing my story on my other show about me hitting rock bottom and coming back, I have had people reach out and we have a small audience. For a long time, we were barely at 100 downloads an episode, but there's 100 people showing up to listen to you every week. There's 30 people showing up to listen to you and your story every week. If you were in a room with how many people were listening to your show every week, how would that feel? Would that feel really good? Because that's one of the things I want you to start thinking about when you're thinking about putting a pin in your podcast because you don't have the download numbers. There are a lot of reasons why your download numbers aren't growing. And I keep having podcast audits. Again, if you want one, it's a free 30 minutes with me. It's not a sales call. It's literally a coaching call. What I get out of it is market research. So I do get something out of it, but you also get 30 minutes. There's pieces of it that we need to have in line, right? We need to have our SEO for the crappy SEO that we have in podcast land. We need to have good titles. We need to have good content. But one of the things that I'm coming across more and more when I'm doing these is that it's the content. We've pigeonholed ourselves and we've lost that passion and that purpose and that drive to continue to create content. So everything gets rushed because here we are, the 19th hour or the 22nd hour or the 23rd hour. And we're like, oh crap, our podcast has to go out in an hour. Let's just throw something together. Because we've lost the sight of that why. We've lost sight of that purpose. We've lost sight of what it is that we are doing because we've pigeonholed ourselves into believing we have to be in this tiny little box of a niche or whatever our topic is. And I did this. If you listen to my last episode, this is exactly what happened to me. And that's why I'm grateful for and was so powerful to listen to when I listened on the Unmute Yourself podcast. I'm grateful for and I want more. I'm grateful for having the ability to share with you the strategies to grow, to get visible, the SEO, how to use social media. I'm grateful for that. And I want more. I want to teach you to go deep because as soon as your message hits like the heartstrings for yourself and hits that internal fire that's just makes you so excited to share, that's when your show starts to grow. As soon as you get over the fear of having to please other people and not stand out in the crowd, and you're like, I'm ready to be visible, everything changes. This just happened to one of my clients. She was around 1,500 downloads in the first 30 days. She finally said, screw it, and started being more herself, started being more outwardly talking about things that might not necessarily keep the peace. And her show is now at 5,000 downloads in 3 months. 4 months. It's been 4 months. And she was stuck at that 1,500 level for years. What changed was her ability to show up. I'm grateful for my 1,500 listeners a week. And I want more. So I'm going to show up. Because after that, and you have to have the desire to want more. You have to have the desire to get to the next level. And to do that, you have to take the action. So I am grateful for this show. I am grateful for each one of the listeners out there. And being that this is Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to those of you in the US. I am grateful for you all. If you are someone from a different country, happy Thursday. I'm grateful for you. But I'm grateful for, and I want to give you more. I want to go deeper with you. I want to help you find a profitable plan for your podcast because we have to get over this. I'm grateful for the profits I'm making. Okay, if you make bigger profits, guess what you get to do? Make bigger impact, all the things. So we're a little tired today, if you can't tell, and I'm a little under the weather. But I'm grateful for the ability that I can still show up in this condition, I'm going to call myself today, and still provide you with value. So the value and the takeaway for today is I want you to sit down and say, I'm grateful for those things that are in your show. What are you grateful for? I'm grateful for my listeners because if I showed up in a room of people every week that listened to me, I'm grateful for that because that would be overwhelming to me. But I want you to start thinking about these things. And then after you go through what you want, I want you to reverse engineer it and say, okay, what have I lost in my show? Have I lost my passion? Have I lost my purpose? Have I lost sight of my why? Have I pigeonholed myself into something? Have I grown and I need to pivot? Pivots are good. Pivots are fine. And there's a way to do it. If you need support with that, podcastcpr.com, grab one of those 30-minute audits. I could help you with a pivot plan. Ooh, I like that. A pivot plan. Ooh, should that be something? If you think it should be something, let me know. But anyways, I want you to really think about this. I am grateful for, and I want more. What is the more you want? And then we've got to start thinking of the actions to get there. So yes, there is strategy, but there also is the piece of understanding the heart-centered part of your podcast. Why are you showing up? What's your why? What's your purpose for your show? What's your end desire? Because even with a tiny audience, you can make a huge impact in your income, in your sharing your message in general. Because if those 30 people told one person about something they learned in your podcast, that's 60 people. What if those people tell the next people and the next people and the next people? So that ripple can really turn into a tsunami if you allow yourself to keep showing up. And that's what I want you to do, is to keep showing up. I'm grateful for, and this is what I want next. But be grateful for your little shows. Be grateful for your big shows. Be grateful for your accomplishments. Be grateful for those connections, and want more. So that's what I have for you today. Happy Thanksgiving again, or happy Thursday. And I want you to start thinking about your show beyond just the profit numbers, beyond just the download numbers. Yes, we want to grow both of those, and we need to grow both of those. But we need to fix the foundation of your show before either of those are going to budge. Because if you spend a ton of time marketing and promoting and getting PR and doing all of that, and your show is landing flat because your heart isn't in it anymore, it's never going to grow anyways. It's just going to make you burnt out and on the hamster wheel. And that is not what we're about here. We are curing pod fade so that podcasting is easy peasy, lemon squeezy, fun, rewarding, exciting. And it actually is an outlet for you to stand up, share your message, share your magic, be seen, be heard, and make an impact. So I will see you next week.